Hi there, my name is Sherry Rothwell, and I'm a holistic nutritionist that helps people lose weight naturally without dieting. So, is that really true? Can you actually lose weight naturally without dieting? Yes, you absolutely can. In fact, people who lose weight and keep it off permanently are actually doing something different that is more about their mindset that precedes permanent weight loss that 99% of people don't have. And that's a health conscious mindset. So when I found myself obese, I, to be honest with you, I was pretty floored because I was already health conscious. So the reason why, in my experience, that I ended up obese was because I had some underlying health issues that had come about from doing what I thought was the right thing to do. Like a lot of people are in this boat, right? Where you already think you're eating healthy and you end up obese or overweight, low flies. um, and it just doesn't make any sense to you because you're already eating healthy. Okay. So I understand it. I've completely been there. So these things that I thought that I was doing that were so healthy resulted in me gaining a lot of weight and some of it really, really quickly in combination with other factors like stress, etc. And when I found out that I was obese, kind of happened like gradually over time after having babies, but then the last 20 pounds came on in less than 2 months. And then I was like, oh my God, like I just didn't realize what had happened. So the one thing that was really important to me was that I would lose weight, but I wasn't interested in counting calories and I wasn't interested in like spending a lot of time or any time at the gym, to be honest with you. And so I had to completely think differently about weight loss. So I already had that first step down, which was to eat natural foods. But what I didn't realize was that the natural foods diet that I was eating, which was a whole foods vegetarian diet, had become too much in extreme. So at some point in my life, when I went from the standard North American diet to a whole foods vegetarian diet, I lost weight naturally without dieting. And in that experience, I believed that that was the answer, that if everyone just ate natural foods and was a vegetarian, then we would all be a natural weight. So I remember actually saying to my friend, I'm so happy that I've actually figured this out and I never have to worry about my weight again. And this came from when I was a teenager. I was someone who binged and I would starve myself and do Weight Watchers and, you know, do all these aerobics videos, etc. So I'd already had that history of dieting. And then I became health conscious, ate this natural whole foods diet. And then in like a couple years, suddenly I went from being like slightly overweight to like my perfect ideal weight. And so I thought that was the answer for everyone. But then later, after having children and then going through stressful experiences in my life, I found myself obese on this exact same diet that had me normalize my weight in my early 20s. So what I had to do was figure out like, why did this same diet not work? The one that worked in my 20s and then it didn't work in my 30s and I ended up obese. Well, it's a couple things. One is that I actually believed that it was being a vegetarian that helped me to lose weight. But actually, in hindsight, it was the change from a standard North American diet to a whole foods diet. So I went from eating foods with chemicals in them and just eating, junk food and, like lots of pasta and wine and, all these different things, sugar, to just eating natural foods. And as a result, my weight just normalized. And that's what happens when you give the body what it needs and you stop giving it what it doesn't need, it just releases body fat. So that's what happened at that point. But what happened later was that over time, due to multiple different factors, not having enough protein in my diet meant that I started to eat too many carbohydrates, even though they were natural whole food carbohydrates, sourdough bread and potatoes and yams and beans and rice, right? Like this was the bulk of my vegetarian diet, a lot of carbohydrates. That combined with excess cortisol from being stressed in my marriage and in just my life in general. I was a stay-at-home mom, but also building a business at the same time. And there's just a lot of pressure on me with all that, combined with so many carbohydrates. Now my body was taking the stress hormones and driving up my insulin even more. Okay, so I had like a lot of insulin had to be stimulated to deal with all these carbohydrates that I was eating, even though they were natural. Plus, I had the addition of the stress driving up cortisol, more insulin. And when your insulin is elevated, your body has no choice but to take the carbohydrates you eat, doesn't matter if they're not from something processed, even if they're natural, and store them as body fat. And the third contributing factor that not just at the time, always at the time, at this time even, I am Indigenous. So my biological father is an insulin injecting diabetic. So I have a hereditary tendency to become insulin resistant when exposed to processed foods. Now, and carbohydrates. So even though my mother is, purebred German, and I have that European ancestry as well, it doesn't matter. I still have that tendency because of like basically European people have so much experience being exposed to, white flour, white sugar, etc. Whereas Indigenous people don't have that long of a history of ever being exposed to that. So Indigenous people are more susceptible to insulin resistance. Nowadays, of course, it's even worse, right? Because everybody's susceptible to insulin resistance. It doesn't matter what your biography or biology, like we've all been exposed to so much exposure to unnatural foods, right? And concentration of foods that are high in carbohydrates, because we don't have to go and like pick the wheat berries and grind the wheat berries into flour, right, by hand, and then make our bread from scratch, sourdough leaven it. It takes time to rise, and it's so much work, right? So because it's all at the grocery store and we all have more access to it than we've ever had before, it doesn't matter what your nationality is. If you overdo carbohydrates, especially with a bunch of other factors in place, such as some of the ones that I mentioned, and then also things like as you age, people lose muscle mass, digestion starts to weaken because of eating these diets. And then also as we age, we get more and more toxic, right? So if you have more toxins coming into your body and your digestive fire is like crashing, then you're going to be building up toxins in your body. So you can have toxins from the environment, but you can also have toxins that are generated inside of your body from poor digestion. So the more clogged you are, the more you're going to be insulin resistant. Okay, so one of the things that I also did to lose weight without dieting was to go on a very deep cleanse. And that essentially kickstarted my process to being able to release body fat over a couple of years, completely naturally, without any counting calories or restricting food, and without any specific exercise. Okay, just like maybe a walk, but not even consistently. So exercise is not that important when it comes to losing body fat. Of course, it's important for other reasons, like for your health, your circulation, and it's very important to restore your muscle mass so that you have more tolerance for carbohydrates, but also so that you are stronger and look better, right? You can get thin, and then if you don't have that muscle mass, then you can be flabby, right? So all these things are contributing factors, and they're very important. So yes, you can actually lose weight naturally without dieting, and that's by giving your body what it needs and stop giving it what it doesn't need. And basically that comes down to getting into the mindset that you want to put your health first. So I'm just going to share with you quickly this picture of me. You can see that I was obese in this picture. I was 176 pounds, not pregnant. This is me after a few years of changing my physiology inside, getting that balance that I needed, and changing my diet to be a balanced diet. So a big part of my journey was not incorporating so many carbohydrates. I wasn't keto necessarily. I had little, um, you know, moments on my journey where I went into like a really low carb and high fat to get past plateaus. That's where I see that keto and, these different diets that people go on, um, that as long as they're based on whole foods, you can shift your physiology and get through a plateau by going on these like special diets. But they're not something that you would want to maintain for the rest of your life, right? Like you have to have a way of eating that is going to support you to have your ideal body weight and shape, but without having to be super extreme. So, because you still want to have a life and you want to have pleasure, right? So basically, what I did was I went from my natural whole foods diet that was vegetarian to replacing the lentils and the rice with actual meat. And I got all these other health benefits from doing that, which is, amazing. So essentially, I had to restore balance in my body through nutrition, right? So getting that meat in there, it has different nutrients than plant proteins that are super important for your hormones. And weight loss is actually a hormonal thing. It's not a calories thing. That's a whole subject for itself. But our body stores fat with hormones. So if you don't have the right nutrition for your hormones, then your body is going to be in a state of weight loss resistance, no matter what you do, even if you eat like a bird and exercise like crazy. So what you have to do is be health conscious, like change your mindset where you put your health before this idea of losing weight. And you want to do what nature is asking you to do. So if you want to be at a natural weight, then you have to eat and live naturally. So yes, I was already eating a vegetarian whole foods diet, but that wasn't eating naturally. Humans are meant to eat meat. So I had to incorporate meat into my diet. And then that balanced out my meals so that I was centering my meals around protein, which automatically brings down your carbohydrates without you having cravings for them, right? So if we have cravings, it means there's some need that's not getting met in our life, whether that's emotional or whether that is physical or nutritional, etc., lifestyle. So I'm always looking for that source of the problem. And in all of us, it's different. There's different factors that are more relevant than others, right? So let's say, for example, if I couldn't digest fat, I would have had to do this differently. Fortunately, I've always been able to digest fat really well. So yeah, if let's say you can't digest fat, then you're going to have to adjust how you eat to your unique situation. And everybody has, their own little things that they need to do. But the long and the short of it is that if you want to be at your natural weight, you have to eat a natural diet and live a natural lifestyle. And that is what you have been designed to do on this planet. The creator created this world to provide nourishment for you. You get nourishment, not just from the food you eat, but from, being barefoot on the ground, being in nature, getting connected to the sun. All of these things that are provided for you are what you are supposed to derive your nourishment from. You are not meant to derive your nourishment from processed foods. You're not meant to, sit inside all day and be away from the sun. You're not meant to be in a house all day and never touch the ground and never be barefoot and never, have nature. Literally, this idea of a nature deficit, that is completely real thing. There are so many forms of nourishment that are available to us that we have to create a balanced lifestyle in order to access that nourishment. And when we don't get it, then there are consequences to our health because we were designed to be in connection with those energies. And then, of course, the food that the creator designed for us to eat is the food that comes out of the ground off a tree, right? It's not out of a lab somewhere a chemical that's, added to a product with another chemical that makes something taste good that is devoid of actual real sustenance. So it's always the first step to lose weight naturally without dieting is to eat natural foods and live a natural lifestyle.